Hello. We're going to talk today about the Carmel River and all the lands around it that are surrounded by the mountains. This is a very special place that has a lot of creatures that live here, and they depend on the river and all the creeks to survive. There are so many different kinds of plants and animals that live in and around the Carmel River. We can't talk about all of them, so we're going to focus on some that are especially important and very different from each other. The Carmel River Watershed has many different types of homes. You could live in the water, you could live on top of a mountain, you could live in a redwood canyon. All the creatures we'll talk about today have something to do with water. We're going to look at their life cycles and some of their adaptations. What is an adaptation? Adaptations are all the special things that help each animal survive where it lives. Changes are happening in nature that are making it very hard for many of the plants and animals in the Carmel River watershed to survive. The weather is getting warmer and there's less rain, so the river is drying up sooner every year. What do you think this means for all the creatures that live here? Now let's use a map to see the area that we're talking about. The blue line is the river. If we go up from the ocean, it gets smaller and smaller and turns into tiny creeks. The black line around the watershed are the mountains. All the rain that falls here goes down, down, down to the creeks, to the river, and then to the ocean.
So let's now go up Potrero Canyon, which is our most southern coastal creek that meets the Carmel River.
So here we are standing actually over Potrero Creek, and happily it is still flowing. It's like we're standing in the bottom of a bowl. We're at the lowest place because the creek is here. Water flows to the lowest place.
Plants that live in our riparian habitats have amazing adaptations for both collecting and storing water. And we'll take the redwood as an example. Redwoods have needles, and each one of these needles is shaped like a little trough for collecting moisture in the air. Be it rain or fog, the water drips down the tree, and even the branches swoop down so the water falls down at the base of the tree.
How wonderful is this for a redwood tree? If it grows in a place without very much rain, it can collect its own water from the fog. That allows them to grow in a place like the Carmel River watershed where there really isn't enough rain for them. Other special adaptations that allow redwoods to live to be over 2,000 years old is that instead of growing just from seeds, they grow from sprouts. It's a little copy of the tree that grows right on the side of it. Most trees don't do that. Also, after a fire, redwoods almost never die. They just grow new branches and keep on going. So now we're going to talk about some other living things that live in the water.
Along the Carmel River, there are a lot of insects, and one of our favorite to look for are dragonflies. They have a 3-stage life cycle. So they start in the water as an egg, and then they hatch into a nymph or a larva. They breathe by sucking water into their abdomens through internal gills. They spend months or years underwater growing to a couple of inches long and developing wings on their back. But they spend most of their lives as aquatic insects crawling around the bottom of ponds or streams. Both nymphs and adult dragonflies are predators, but when they're a nymph, they have to catch food without their wings. They have a mouth part that they shoot out. It's like a long hinged arm that they keep folded under their head.
Oh my gosh, have you ever seen anything so strange?
So when they're ready, they molt one last time and hatch out of the water and become expert flyers. They can fly every direction and hover like a helicopter. And they're predators, so they fly catch and capture their prey in midair.
The adaptations that dragonflies have that have kept them around for millions of years are amazing flight and eyesight. And those are going to help them into the future as the earth is changing. But what is A problem for them is that they do need water in their life cycle.
Dragonflies are one of the oldest flying insects, and they were here during the time of the dinosaurs. We have a very special frog that is actually threatened, and it lives here, called the red-legged frog.
A threatened species has so little habitat left in the world that there are almost none alive. They're mostly a pond frog or in very still water in the creeks and river. They lay their eggs in the wintertime. They attach those eggs to plants that are at the water surface. And those eggs hatch into a tadpole, and it takes about 4 to 7 months for them to develop through metamorphosis into a frog. Let's listen to the call of a red-legged frog. Like other frogs, they mostly eat bugs, some small fish and larvae, and they're big enough to even eat a mouse sometimes. Let's watch one eat. We can see they're amazing creatures, but you know what? They have some adaptations that are making it really hard for them to survive. One is that, of course, being amphibians, they lay their eggs in water. And what happens if there is no water in the river? And that's happening more and more often. Let's talk about a true fish, a steelhead trout. They are so important because we have very few of them left, and they're a really good sign of river health. A good, healthy watershed means you have steelhead, and an unhealthy watershed, you don't have steelhead. So let's learn a little bit more about their life cycle and their adaptations.
Rainbow trout are born in freshwater streams, and they spend their entire life feeding and growing and spawning in the stream. Steelhead trout are migratory rainbow trout that are born in the freshwater streams, and then they migrate as juveniles out to the ocean, where they spend years before they return to the river to spawn.
Both begin their lives as eggs deposited in the gravel of a cold, clear, rushing stream. The eggs hatch within 20 days, and the tiny fry stay in the gravel for another few weeks, feeding off of the yolk sac attached to their bodies. When the young fry finally emerge from the gravel, they can catch their own food. Juvenile fish spend their time in the stream, feeding on insects and growing larger.
Returning to the creek that they came from is an adaptation, as well as the color change that they go through. They look like a rainbow trout. They have red on them when they're in the river, and when they go out to sea, they're all silver, so they blend in and they're harder to find from predators.
One of the most interesting and perplexing things about steelhead trout is their homing behavior and their ability to detect their spawning grounds after years of being in the sea. It is believed that they use the Earth's magnetic field like a compass, and when they find the river they came from, they use their sense of smell to find their way back to their home stream.